I remember the first time I met Emma Hayes. She was young, barely 25, and had the kind of energy that made you believe anything was possible. Emma was a newly graduated nurse, full of big dreams, and a heart even bigger than her dreams. She wasn't just smart. She was curious in a way that made others around her curious too. If a patient had an unusual symptom, Emma wouldn't just write it down and move on. She would dig deeper, ask questions no one else thought to ask. She wanted to understand, not just treat. Emma had been working at St. Mary's Hospital for just under a year when the hospital gave her a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a chance, to attend the prestigious National Medical Innovations Conference. It was a big deal. Doctors, surgeons, researchers from all over the country would be there. She was nervous, of course. "I'm just a nurse," she told me the night before she left, sitting at the little diner down the street from the hospital. I smiled at her across the table. "Emma," I said, "you have more passion than half the people who will be there. You belong just as much as anyone else." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. When Emma arrived at the conference, she felt it immediately, that heavy feeling of not fitting in. The conference halls were packed with men and women in expensive suits, laughing and shaking hands like they'd known each other forever. Emma stood there, in her simple navy blue dress, clutching her notepad tightly. During the first panel discussion, Emma raised her hand. She had been studying an unusual reaction some patients were having to a common infection. She believed there might be a connection between the infection and an overlooked protein in the blood. When they called on her, she spoke, her voice clear but a little shaky. Before she could even finish explaining her theory, one of the panelists, a well-known doctor whose name I won't repeat, chuckled into his microphone. "Thank you, nurse," he said, dragging the word out like it was something dirty. "Leave the big discoveries to the scientists. Maybe stick to taking temperatures, all right?" The audience laughed. It wasn't a full belly laugh. It was worse. A cold, sharp laugh that seemed to cut right through Emma. She stood there for a moment, frozen. Then she sat down slowly, her cheeks burning with shame. The rest of the session blurred by. Emma didn't ask any more questions. She barely took notes. She just wanted to disappear. When she called me that night from her hotel room, I could hear the tears in her voice. "Maybe I really don't belong," she said. "Maybe I should just accept my place." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to fix it, to make her hurt go away, but all I could do was listen. After that, Emma changed. She smiled less. She stopped asking questions at staff meetings. She buried herself in work, moving quietly from patient to patient. But deep down, Emma hadn't given up completely. The pain she carried turned into a quiet fire inside her. She didn't stop thinking about that strange infection and the protein she had noticed. Late at night, after her shifts ended, she would sneak into the small lab at St. Mary's. She used whatever equipment she could get her hands on. She read medical journals until her eyes burned. She emailed researchers, though most never replied. Some even told her, kindly but firmly, that she was wasting her time. Still, she kept going. Over months, Emma began to see patterns no one else saw. She discovered that the protein she had noticed wasn't just reacting to the infection, it was fighting it. In fact, it seemed like the body was producing the protein naturally as a defense, but only in very small amounts. Emma wondered, what if we could boost this protein? Could we help the body heal itself faster without the heavy side effects of traditional treatments? The idea was simple and powerful. Emma gathered her notes and tried to present her findings to the hospital board. They listened politely. They thanked her. Then they gently suggested she hand over her research to someone more qualified to lead it. Someone with a PhD, a few said. Emma nodded. She pretended to agree. Then she went back to the lab the next night. She wasn't giving up. Weeks turned into months. Emma worked in secret, partnering with a small local research clinic willing to listen. They began small, careful tests. The results were stunning. Patients with the infection recovered twice as fast. Some didn't need antibiotics at all. Side effects were nearly zero. Word spread quietly at first, a whisper through the halls of St. Mary's. Then the research clinic published a paper. Then another. Soon, a major medical journal picked up the story. Then a national news network. And suddenly, Emma's name was everywhere. Young nurse discovers breakthrough treatment, the headlines read. The same conference that had once humiliated her now begged her to return, this time as the keynote speaker. I remember standing backstage with her that day. She was wearing a simple but elegant black dress, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked calm, but when she turned to me, I could see the nervous sparkle in her eyes. I'm scared, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. You've earned this, Emma. You belong here. When she stepped onto the stage, the room was packed. Thousands of faces stared back at her. Doctors, researchers, students, some of the very people who had laughed at her not so long ago. Emma stood tall at the podium. She spoke clearly, passionately, and without an ounce of bitterness. She didn't mention the humiliation. She didn't talk about the nights spent crying or doubting herself. Instead, she talked about hope. About how sometimes the best ideas come from the most unexpected places. About how curiosity and kindness should matter more than titles and degrees. The audience stood and clapped. Some even wiped their eyes. Later that evening, Emma and I sat outside the conference hall, our feet dangling over a small fountain. She kicked off her heels and laughed, a deep, free laugh that I hadn't heard in so long. I almost gave up, she said quietly, looking up at the stars. I almost let them convince me I wasn't enough. But you didn't, I said. You are enough. You always were. Emma went on to receive awards, invitations to work at the biggest hospitals in the country. But she stayed at St. Mary's. She said she wanted to be close to the people who needed her most. Today, the treatment Emma discovered has saved thousands of lives, and it's just the beginning. She's working on new research now, helping train young nurses and doctors to believe in their own voices, no matter what. Whenever I walk past her office, I see her door wide open, her desk covered in books and papers, and that same spark in her eye, the spark of someone who knows that true discovery starts with courage, not credentials. And every time I see her, I remember the world tried to silence Emma Hayes. But it only made her louder, stronger, and more unstoppable than ever.